Contract support costs, as you have mentioned, and as I have mentioned, this has long been a priority of mine to make sure that full contract support costs are without question. And the separate appropriations account that we developed, I think, is going to be important to make sure that, again, we're honest with this. We're not stealing or not taking from one account to help meet this obligation. You mentioned the mandatory three-year approach here that you are laying out. Frequently, we've seen the administration make some general statements about providing mandatory funding for certain programs, but then it never sends up the legislative proposal. Last week, we talked about mandatory proposals by the administration for accounts like LWCF and the national parks, but there were no offsets for those. So question for you this morning is whether or not you do plan to send the Congress the proposal for mandatory funding for contract support costs, and if so, when, and then whether or not there will be any offset identified.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. Yes, we are committed to fully funding contract support costs, and as you mentioned, in our FY17 budget proposal, we are proposing to make contract support costs mandatory for 3 years starting in the FY18, and we are committed to sending up language. We look forward to working with this committee and others to provide language throughout the process, I will defer to Liz Bauer. I am not sure about the offset question.
Ms. Fowler?
Good morning.
Morning.
The overall president's budget takes care of the offset for all of the mandatory proposals that are in the president's budget request. There's not a one-to-one offset within the IHS budget. So it's addressed by the president's budget overall.
Well, that may continue to be an issue. As you know, there have been many concerns raised by those of us that are looking at the president's budget and how they are proposing to address specific offsets. I have had a lot of constituents coming to me over the years expressing some frustration about contract support costs and again making sure that there is that full funding. So now we got to full funding, and the push has been, can we make this mandatory? And I think it will be met with good news that the proposal is that we do see it on the mandatory side, but as we all know, this is the last year of a two-term president, and I think there are many that have said there has been time that was wasted here, and it's unfortunate that we're just seeing it on the way out. Now, I am told that the agency has still failed to settle about 30% of all the contract support cost claims filed against it by tribes, and of course this dates back many years. Where are you on prioritizing the conclusion of all the outstanding claims that are currently on file? If you can just give me an update on that.
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for asking about the settling of the contract support cost claims. You are about right. My understanding is we have settled about 75% of those, and my understanding is that a majority of the remaining ones are ones for more recent years. So I understand that we have worked through the longer standing disputes, and we are working on more recent cases as a general matter. So we are committed to continue to resolve those and, paying full contract support costs.
Who's in charge of executing that plan, just in terms of making sure that you move through as many of them as quickly as possible?
I think that, obviously, as head of the agency, ultimate responsibility is with me, but I know that Ms. Fowler, in her role over management and operations, oversees and works very closely with our Office of General Counsel to ensure that these are a priority and we continue to make progress on the settlements.
Well, no, that continues to be a very, very high priority.